Today, we're beginning the conversation when it comes to children and trauma. The goal is to help give parents, teachers, and caregivers the tools they need to help children overcome any situation. Joining me is the co-founder of the Institute of Psychology, registered psychologist, Tammy Schamuhn. Thanks so much for being here this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Tammy, let's get right into it. When it comes to trauma, what falls under that umbrella?
Well, we specialize in children's trauma. So what we're looking at are post-traumatic responses. So maybe people have been through a car accident, domestic violence, sexual abuse, high conflict divorce, extreme bullying, even surgeries, major medical incidences, things like that. So it's pretty varied.
When it comes to symptoms, I know you classify them under two umbrellas, right? Externalizing and internalizing. Let's start with externalizing. What do externalizing symptoms look like?
So with externalizing symptoms, we see things like people who get really angry. In kids, we see tantrums. We see phobias, anxiety, mood swings. We see nightmares and flashbacks, those sorts of pieces.
And in terms of internalizing?
Yeah, that's more what happens when we have more of a freeze response. So that has to do with people having digestive issues. They get depressed. They feel shame and guilt. We get repetitive types of play. It's related to asthma and digestive issues, things like that.
If we don't address these types of trauma, because I think sometimes if children are going through these symptoms, they're showing these symptoms, maybe parents or caregivers don't recognize them, or they think it's just part of growing up, it's not a big deal. If we don't address them, are there any long-term effects that they could have on them?
Yeah, we know that one of the biggest correlations is addictive behaviors, because people learn to deal with their symptoms through a numbing out process. And that numbing out can be with alcohol, can be sex addiction, it can be technology, all sorts of things that it can lead to. And it also leads to intergenerational trauma. So if you have a child that's traumatized, they're more likely to either seek out a partner who will traumatize their kids, or they will become the aggressors or the assailant in terms of abuse.
So then the key here is obviously to catch it early and treat it early and not let it fester up.
Exactly. The earlier the better, especially in terms of how the brain is. The brain is very malleable. It has something called neuroplasticity. So the younger we are, the more easily it is to reorganize the brain in healthy ways. So then children have a chance at developing resiliency around the trauma. And then the longer that we wait, obviously more damage occurs because the child's brain is actually rewired differently.
Obviously, every child is different. Every situation is unique in its own right. Are there any simple steps or advice that you can give for parents, for caregivers, that they can take to help their children overcome these issues and kind of put that in the past, the trauma?
Making sure that children have predictable, safe relationships would be the first and foremost thing that kids need if they've had trauma. The second thing is finding a registered professional who is versed in childhood trauma, knows the symptoms, knows how the approach to take that is developmentally appropriate. So you want a child psychologist or a registered play therapist, and really taking a team approach. We can't treat this in isolation. We have to work with teachers and EAs and psychologists and sometimes social workers, behavior specialists, things like that. So everyone has to be on the same page. So it's often, like I said, a team-based approach.
It's a process, and obviously not a solution that happens overnight, but the key is to get to it early and go through that journey, because it's going to help the child long term.
Yes, exactly.
Well, listen, you guys do an incredible amount of work. Now, the Institute of Psychology, they hold a number of workshops, and they cover a number of topics, everything from trauma to anger to anxiety. And for more information, you can head to their website. It's instituteofchildpsychology.com. Tammy, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much.